here tonight. We recognize him. Really happy to see John here doing much better than the last time we saw him.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Come on in, guys, have a
Welcome.
seat. I think there should be some space now. Also tonight, or this week, this month is Board Recognition Month, so the Art Department gave some presents to the Board of Education, designed as, if you want to hold them up and show people, you got some chocolates, we got some fortune cookies, and we actually made fortune cookie presents for you, and I'm sure there's some really nice things inside. For our report, we did the student recognitions, we had our presentation from the 7th grade students, and now our Assistant Superintendent for Business, Mrs. Rhonda Messerol, is going to do a presentation on how to read fiscal reports, and this is for the Board of Education, but also for the public to see that every month the board is presented with fiscal reports, and there's a way to read them and analyze them to know that we're doing the right thing with the funds we get. So Rhonda, I'm going to kind of zip through some of these slides here, so you can go right to where you.
Okay, I want to say that I was pleased when I was asked to present this slideshow on how to read financial statements. The Board of Education does have a fiscal responsibility to the residents and making sure that the monies are spent in the right way and all of the assets are appropriately managed. So a lot of that is done through the reports that are received each month and also quarterly and annually. So I know, as a personal aside, as an external auditor formerly, that the Board of Education in Sayville always took the information very seriously, any recommendations that were ever made. So I know that each of you do take this matter very seriously. So some of the strength here in Sayville is a result of many of the things that, circumstances that are looked at, and that is to make sure that there is enough cash on hand, revenues are supporting the expenditures on an ongoing basis, long-term debt obligations as well as short-term obligations are met with a good credit rating from Moody's, which they are. That means lower interest rates on our borrowings. That, you know, our students are either meeting or exceeding the state standards, that administration is committed to professional development and continuing education, that our long-range fiscal plan is looked at frequently and is used to assess our progress. Part of that, I guess, would be also 100 days of learning, just how we're monitoring all of this. Our infrastructure is well maintained. That's inside of our buildings and also outside. That all of our state and federal aid claims are filed in a timely manner and accurately. And that we engage experienced outside professionals to advise the district on any new pronouncements in terms of our accounting records and books. And that just the Board of Education and the administration has a good rapport, and they're working well together in making sure that all of our fiscal needs are attended to. So I'm going to go through the different reports. Monthly, the board receives a treasurer's report, a budget status report for all of the revenues and expenditures, a internal claims auditor report that gives information on claims that have been processed through the district. Budgetary transfers are presented. Quarterly, we see extra classroom activities cash flow. That is all of the ins and outs of our different extracurricular clubs. And then annually, we look to the cash flow projections that are presented, fund balance projections, fiscal monitoring. Those are the fiscal stress scores that are provided by the State Controller's Office. And then our external and internal audit reports and those processes. So I'm going to go through each one of them individually. So each month, the board receives a treasurer's report that is provided by the district's treasurer, and it is an accounting of all of the cash on hand. It starts with the beginning balance, then it goes through the receipts for the month, less the expenditures, and then it reports the bank statement balance, and it gives a little reconciliation, your bank. So the things that I would point out in terms of the board's review each month would be check to see if there are any negative cash balances. Check to see if the month-end balances are reconciling with the bank statements. Review any adjustments that are reflected outside of deposits in transit or outstanding checks, any large differences. And then also the district's total cash position at the end of each month. So this is a summary. There is also a collateral statement that is provided that shows that our balances are either, the bank balances are protected by FDIC insurance, and then if not, other types of collateral that are pledged at 102% of our bank statement balances. The next report is the budget status report for revenues. These are presented, these are just samples of actual, it was from the month of August, but this is provided to the board for each of our separate funds. The one here presented is our general fund. That is where our adopted budget is the main focus, and it shows all of our revenues received and then any anticipated revenues. So here, the first column is the original budget. First column is the account, the uniform system of accounts. Everything is specified by a specific account number. The description, the original budget, an adjustment column. Here in the revenues, you might see a budget amendment. I know for the month of September, we accepted a donation from our insurance NYSER, and that was for $1,000. So you would see under the donations an increase to the revenues of $1,000, and then it would increase the expenditure side for where those funds were being spent. Mostly there are not many adjustments with regard to the revenue side. Then you look to the revenues received to date, and it is a year-to-date report. And then the unearned revenue is the balance after you see what the budget was compared to what we have received thus far. And here I might point out, does the revenue line in particular look like something that we'll be able to attain? And just always keeping in mind that there are revenues that are very cyclical. Our real property taxes do not come in evenly throughout the fiscal year, but rather at certain points of the year, as well as our state aid. So that is, when you see that there is an unearned revenue for real property taxes, you have to look to see the month in which you're reviewing that to make sure, as you get closer to the end of your fiscal year, that should align with the budget.
For example, we haven't gotten any property tax revenues yet this year.
Yes.
So that's why we have to actually do the state requirement to borrow to cover those anticipated revenues that are coming.
Yes, and I will show that that's depicted more in the cash flow projection, which is a little later on. But also, we are very conservative when we budget for certain line items too. You don't budget for insurance recoveries or donations. Those are things that are happening by outside events. So just something to keep in mind. So for the expenditure side, and again, those are reflected for each of the funds that the district has within its financial records. Here is just depicted the first page of, it's 25 pages, but the expenditure side of the budget. And here you would be reviewing the expenditure accounts to make sure that there are no line items that are overspent. And just, I'll just go through the columns here. Again, the original budget. What you see on the expenditure status report is in the adjustment column. That would comprise any budget transfers. Those are the to and from. So it's The budget is used as a management tool, so it is not uncommon, but rather expected that you might have budget transfers throughout the year. So you're managing what your budget is, and as expenditures come up, that you are making sure there's ample money on those line items to allow for those. There are major encumbrances that are made at the beginning of the year, and that's sort of to set aside those monies. We know to a fairly good degree what our salaries are, so that's a very large encumbrance made at the beginning of the year. That is detailed within our payroll department by employee and what their negotiated salary is based on contracts and the like. Also fringe benefits and those utilities, those are things that you can encumber at the beginning of the fiscal year, and it just helps you keep all of the expenditures in line so that you know those are already pretty much spoken to. You're going to get a monthly electrical bill or utility bill, phone bill. Also BOCES, at the beginning of our fiscal year, we have a letter of intent with BOCES. Those are the services that we've signed up for with BOCES. So that is also an encumbrance or a large purchase order that is issued and then set aside at the beginning of the fiscal year. So here again, you just want to make sure that the codes are in line with the budget. There again, there are cyclical expenditures. All of our insurances, pretty much our general liability insurance is paid at the beginning of our fiscal year. So we keep that in mind.
And I would just add, so if you're looking at that report, the last column, if you saw negatives in the last column, that would be a concern.
Yes, yes. Sometimes there's a slight timing difference, but the budget transfers are presented to the board each month for approval, so that is in advance.
And also, like you said, it's a management tool, so there may be a reason why.
Yes, absolutely. And the budget should be looked at just that. No one has a crystal ball when you put it together in the beginning, but you need to be able to manage it as you go through your fiscal year. So the board also is responsible for looking at all of the claims prior to them being dispersed out to the vendors. But that is a voluminous job. So in lieu of that, the board appoints an internal claims auditor. And our internal claims auditor is Mr. Michael Kearns of MK Computing and Consulting, and he comes weekly and he looks at every disbursement that is going out. So he does a report monthly to the Board of Ed and kind of summarizes his findings on that review.
I think what's funny is I think technically a school board could actually still do that role.
Absolutely.
Which is mind-boggling because like the volume of checks that are issued and everything, and then to have private citizens, reviewing that without the experience. I can't believe the state allows it.
Yes, that is the fiduciary responsibility, but that is why most do appoint an internal claims auditor, and for the efficiency of looking and reviewing those. And some of the things that the internal claims auditor will look at is the appropriate code being used? Are we following our purchasing policy, whether it be a bid or off of a state contract? Is an RFP in order? He will look at sole source vendor letters and then looks that we're paying off of original invoices and not statements so that we can avoid duplication of payment, that the extension is correct, that we're not paying sales tax, because as a school district, we're not allowed to pay sales tax. So these are all of the things that encompass his review each. And here in Sayville, we have very good vendor relations because this process happens weekly, which is not common. Most school districts do it twice a month, but here it's always been weekly. So he comes and reviews the disbursements and then issues a report. So some of the things that you might look to in those reports, are there things that are coming up each month? Are there things that are recurring for a particular department? Is there recurring not following purchasing policy? So then that might indicate to you a more systemic concern that you would obviously question him on. This is an area that actually recently the State Control's Office issued a report for Wallkill School District, and it was strictly on the internal claims auditor. And what they had found was that and this is not the case here in Sayville, I can assure you, that the internal claims auditor was not looking at any of the support documentation, was not following all of the checks and balances that our internal claims auditor is doing. So it was a report that was just recently issued. And it's on the state website, so it's public information. Okay, next, budget transfers. And here, it's policy 6150 that allows for the transfer within a functional unit. That means, the categories of general support and all the categories, going from a payroll code to a payroll code. So throughout the year, you try to keep within those functional appropriations. As you get to the end of your fiscal year, there's less ability to move, so you may have expenditures that you may have to transfer from other codes. But that is done and presented to the board monthly as a report shown here, and it's transfers out and in. So overall, all you're doing is moving from one code to another. In total, you are not affecting the overall budget. It's just within the different account codes and line items. So here you would want to look to see if there are any unusual transfers that are being done, maybe very large. And the other thing I would caution you to is within your adopted budget, you may transfer out of an equipment code, but you may not transfer into an equipment code. So if you see something like that on a transfer report, you would want to question that. And that is something that our external auditors would look at when they come and conduct their annual audit, and they take a test of transactions and they look for things such as that. Again, not a concern. Okay, the extra classroom activities fund, that is a separate audit report too, but these are student funds. So it's all of the extracurricular clubs that are happening at the middle school and the high school. And quarterly, you receive this report, and it is a report of all of the clubs with the financial activity. It has the balances from the quarter before, the receipts, and then the expenditures, the disbursements, and then striking a new balance for the end of that quarter. This particular report is one that is in your packet for this evening, and it is for September 30th. So the activity at the beginning of for this quarter is not going to be very detailed, because the clubs are just starting back up come the end of September when school is back in session, and all of the clubs are appointing their new presidents and vice presidents and student treasurers for this activity. So here you would just look to see if it's a club that's unusual, one that you're not familiar with, one that wasn't presented with a charter or approved. And then again, if there's any negative balances at the end, it would indicate that the students are not really tracking their deposits and their spending outside of what their club has on hand.
And just for clarity, this is only for school-sponsored clubs.
Yes, it is.
Boosters are not a part of the school district.
No, these are extracurricular clubs that are happening in the school, after school, and the advisors are paid by the school district, and they're appointed for the different clubs. So now we get into some of the annual reports. An annual cash flow. This was just recently done because at this point, excuse me, in the year, we are receiving our tax anticipation notes, which are referred to as our TANs. And what this allows us to do is smooth out our cash flow until we are in receipt of the majority of our property taxes and state aid. So we present this to our fiscal advisors along with our bond counsel, and we get questioned on this, but This is a projection of where we see the cash, and it's an estimate because we don't know what the end of the year is, but things are pretty consistent, so we look to see when the majority of our receipts will come in and when our disbursements happen. And you can see when you get to the month of October, it dips down. And that's because the largest piece of our payroll starts again in September. So in the summer, we still have payroll, but it's a much smaller staff. When all of the schools are back in, that's when our payroll jumps up much larger. So what we look to do is borrow so that we are borrowing money so that we can get over the part until we get our tax monies, hence tax anticipation notes. And then they are repaid by the end of the fiscal year.
And I just want to say, John Bodone would be happy to know that the New York State School Board Association is sponsoring legislation to be able to use reserves rather than borrowing money.
And the controller said it's okay to do also.
Yeah, so hopefully that'll pass, and then it'll give school districts the opportunity.
Especially with the interest rates now, save a lot of money.
Yep.
Yes. So as I shared, the district is taking 2 series out. Just we're paying back a portion of it sooner to save on some of the interest for this year.
Yeah, and I wanted to say it's a really good point. Normally, district would take out the money needed for the whole note period, but thanks to Rhonda, she's separating it so that we can actually pay back sooner and then avoid some interest in the district. So that's kudos to you.
Now, our annual fund balance, this is a projection that starts about January, February. It's easiest to approach this after the first 6 months of your fiscal year. You can pretty much say I have about half of my salaries. It's easier to project where you may end up at the end of your year. So that process begins, and it is shared during our budget process because that will allow us to know to a fair approximation of what we will commit to funding the next year's budget. The picture here is of our actual final fund balance that was presented to the board in September after the close of our audit. Our external auditors had left, and this final fund balance encompassed any year-end audit adjustments that we had made, and then here we know where we lie in terms of the up to amounts and funding any reserves. So it's similar to a cash flow you're projecting for. This happens to be where we actually landed for the 22-23 fiscal year. The next good indicator and information that is received by the Board of Education is the fiscal stress score. And I'm pleased to say here in Sayville, and it doesn't surprise me, the fiscal stress score for the last few years, at least I can report on here, is of no designation. And what that means is it's 0-0. And there are lots of things that are taken into consideration. It's 2 pieces. One is more financial, where is your fund balance in relation to your expenditures, and then the other piece is environmental. So some of that is out of your control, but it deals with student to teacher ratios, and that also was 0-0. The last one, this was issued, it comes out about January, and it's always for the actual year prior. So this is a very good indicator, but if the fiscal stress score was higher, you would probably be on a watch list by the State Controller's Office. So they generate this data to see what governmental entities, and it's villages and school districts, any governmental entities that might have a problem with budget solvency. So. And lastly, we have our annual financial statements, and this is sort of a culmination of the year, certainly for our external auditors. And if you were present or tuned in to the audit committee, we had a presentation by our external auditors, Naraki Smith, and they are appointed by the Board of Education, and the purpose of our external auditors is to give an opinion on the district's financial statements. That opinion that was reported this evening is unqualified, which is the best opinion that you can get on a set of financial statements. Sometimes a byproduct of that audit is also what I call constructive criticism, but it's a management letter, and it's really just a recommendation of maybe things that they've noted. This evening they shared that it was one of best practices, and it was just a policy recommendation for 2 new government accounting standard board pronouncements that were put in place and reflective in the 22-23 year. So the 2 other audits that they conduct as our external auditors is one of the extra classroom funds that is on the cash basis. Again, that is the clubs, the extracurricular clubs that are happening at our high school and middle school. That was an unqualified opinion. And also when a governmental entity is in receipt of more than $750,000 of federal funds, they are subject to a single audit. And that was conducted, and there were no findings there. That's not necessarily an opinion, but more of question costs or were the federal funds used in the appropriate manners. So that was all very positive. And then it's sent to the State Comptroller's Office by October 15th. The other the auditors that we have, and I like to make the differentiation, the internal claims auditor does claims, external auditor, opinion on financial statements, and then our internal auditors are here, and we are subject to an internal audit because we have more than 300 students, we have more than $5 million in expenditures, and we have more than 8 teachers here in Sayville. So our internal auditing firm is R.S. Abrams and Company, and what they look to is risk assessment. How are our internal controls? Are they appropriate for mitigating any risk? And minimally, they are to do a risk assessment report on the district, and then annually they update that risk assessment, which covers all of the different cycles and operational areas of the district. And then, as per the board's request, they look at different cycles. This past year, they had looked at transportation. So that was all a positive report, and that was presented on June 8th. The last audit committee meeting prior to this evening, August 29th, and that was a presentation made by Mary Ann Van Dyne of R.S. Abrams and Company. So at this point, I don't know if there are any questions from the board.
Not really a question, but I'd say thank you so much. This is such great information for us. We don't do this, we don't do what you do, so it's nice for you to put it like this for us to understand. And I definitely hope that there's a paper copy of this presentation available for us. So
Absolutely.
that we can continue to use it to, fact check ourselves and when we're reviewing this report. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. And, there's so much information too on the state's website, and they have a fiscal planning guide and things like that, so, okay.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation.
And I just want to take a moment to thank Rhonda. Last week, we had Amy present on instruction, kind of preparing the plans with the district, and this week on our financial approach to looking at finances. I think it's part of our goal 5, which is to be transparent with the community about what we're trying to do. So I really just want to thank you very much for this, because it helps frame how the board is expected to look at finances each month, and then make sure that we're using tax dollars wisely. And if we do our jobs right, it benefits children and also keeps things where they should be for our people. So thank you. Okay, just the only other part of my report I just wanted to mention, I didn't get a chance to mention this earlier. I had a conversation with some of the teacher members of the policy committee, and they were asking if we could hold off on a second reading on the video camera policy because they had some thoughts that they wanted to share at the when we have a policy meeting. So I just wanted to ask if we could hold that from the agenda. Okay. Yeah, it's on under the policy reading, so it's just the 3rd policy. Okay, great. Do we have a use of facilities report as well? Or is that, I saw that in the thing, I didn't put that in.
Not the whole thing.
Just pull it out
No.
and then just do 2 weeks.
All right, other than that, that's our report for tonight. I want to thank the board, and we're going to go on to the board report.
Okay, So, want to back up. First thing we had to do is correspondence, and we didn't have any correspondence, so nothing to acknowledge. And then under Board of Education discussion, we have the NISBA voting delegate on October 16th. You'll be taking care of that? Okay. Any questions for us, Michael?
No, I mean, I can just repeat kind of the process. What the process is, different school boards, if they have a particular area of concern, and they put forward a resolution, we have put a resolution together last year, we did not put one together this year. The end product is the identification of priorities for the New York State school boards. So it's not like it develops policy, it's more along the lines of information that can be communicated to legislators with legislation or towards the Commissioner of Education who may wish to take those into consideration in developing policy. So it's kind of more of an advisory, but we do host a vote and it's virtual. It was virtual last year. Again, we don't have any resolutions ourselves. And it's something that's just a good point of engagement, and it's a way for school boards to be connected and focus on education.
Was there a deadline date for submitting resolutions?
Yeah,
Like it's probably passed.
it was July.
Yeah. July.
Yeah. Okay. Our next topic is training opportunities. So we have a training opportunity for fiscal governance workshop and dinner. That's on November 29th. And we have to let Julie know by November 1st if you want to attend that. And then there's also a Islip Town School Board meeting on October 23rd. That's hosted by Bay Shore. Is anybody interested in going?
I want to go to that one.
Okay, I'll probably join you on that. Okay, you're an agent. Okay. And then we have the claims audit report. Any questions on the report? And then it's only 2 items, so relatively routine. And then any other board discussion?
Just want to thank the art department and the students for our fortune cookies.
Yes. I'm curious to see what's inside.
Oh, it's the nice little notes.
Yeah, it's nice
Yeah,
from the
they're really
students.
sweet.
It's great, thank you.
That's very nice. And I think we can move on to the public comment portion. Okay, before we go to public comment, I just want to read the statement. The Board of Education appreciates feedback from the community, and we recognize free speech as one of the fundamentals of our freedoms. These freedoms are not without restrictions. We follow regulations specified by law and board policy as we encourage community members to offer public comment. According to Sayville School Board Policy 1230, we request the following. Participants in public session must demonstrate civility as they address the board and the community. 30 minutes have been set aside for comments by the public. The board reserves the right to limit or extend public participation if it deems necessary. Comments and questions from the public are limited to 3 minutes per person and should be related to school matters. Speakers are requested to identify themselves or the group they represent and direct their comments to the board. The board will not permit discussion involving individual students, district personnel, or community members. The full policy is available on the district website, and we appreciate your support to have a productive meeting. Thank you. So can I have a show of hands, how many people would like to speak? Okay, good. I guess we could start with you in front of.
Good evening. My goal here tonight is I want to attempt to make sure that in the future, board members or any school affiliates are not able to pursue students without the consent of their parents. I don't want any, in addition, I don't want to have any students' personal information be given to random strangers. What has prompted my speaking tonight is there was an email sent to a private organization that had nothing to do with the school district. And in that email gave my daughter's name, classes she was taking, and a picture of her artwork that was specifically for here. This is a definitive violation of her privacy. I'm very upset about the fact that a board member contacted the art director and asked to discuss with the art director the possibility of having my daughter come and speak to this private organization without letting me know as the mother. I can't understand why I was not contacted and why this went straight to, why one, we're talking about a private organization with my daughter's information. And more importantly, or in addition to, a week after that email was sent out, I actually saw the board member at the All District Art Show, and he did approach me and speak to me, but never mentioned anything about this. I am relatively certain that that does break code of conduct and some laws and made me extremely uncomfortable because I do not know any of the people that are in this email or that this email was sent to. And I feel that it compromises my daughter. Mr. Birch, you're the one who sent that, and I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. I hope it's addressed.
Could you maybe reach out and talk to Paris?
If you could leave either your number or name of the clerk or call me tomorrow, I'd just like to find out more details that we could discuss in person.
Sure, you got it. Thank you.
Next. Sarah?
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Ferris, for sending out the email that's just the bullying today. It's real, and it needs to be addressed. So I am also privy to the email that the parent discussed. I won't mention, obviously, her name. So we know Dr. Birch has been using his seat to promote himself, and I have another email which used for district property in his personal email chain, using pictures of kids and things like that. This is a gray line, you can kind of say, maybe he is, maybe he's not, but this is a clear violation of what I have. I have a copy of the email. So board members are not required to be fingerprinted because they are not around children, except to hand them diplomas and awards. You can't even go in a building without giving notice. So board members have free from major functions, hire a superintendent, create policy manual to give to the superintendent to run the district, and present a budget to the people who you represent. You have nothing to do with children. They're not your toys. I have the student information and the list of people he gave it to. I can locate that student with that information. We all know that's a very big violation. Teachers know it, everybody knows it. A teacher can lose their job and license, and James can too. Dr. Birch's intent was clear in this email exchange: to pursue, exploit, and use the student and her work to promote himself. He also gave out student information to people other than the parents. Let me repeat that in case someone missed it. Dr. Birch's intent was clear: to pursue, exploit, and use the student and her work to promote himself. He also gave out student information to persons other than the parents. He's not only a risk to our district and the community overall, he's a danger to the students in our district, and every single one of you are responsible to keep them safe. I am giving you an opportunity to force him to step down from his seat. If not, I do it regardless. I will request a state investigation, and I will promote a change.org online petition for his removal, putting the evidence directly on that petition for all to see, what you sanction and empower. I am not the gatekeeper. He was. I'm not obligated not to release that information. He was. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
I'm going to comment here, and I'm not going to say much. The communication was a request for permission to use the art. That was it.
You can supply them.
This is not a back and forth.
It's okay, you can supply them with your
The
email.
problem is people.
And to have her speak.
This is, I was not aware that was your daughter's art. I would have said something to you.
Her name is in the email.
I didn't know that was your daughter's name, I didn't
But
know
you,
your last name.
you,
Okay, I'm gonna ask.
Don't
if
tell
we
them
have
what you
this
have.
I don't want
conversation. I'd like
to,
the
that's
parents
fine,
speak
but I'm
for
not
me,
gonna
maybe we
have
can
my
make a
character
conversation.
assassinated. It was an innocent request for permission to show the art. This is not a back and forth.
Your board members can
Let's be
request your
clear
email.
about
Your board
Let's be
members
clear about
can, you can give your board members your email. We're not going
We're
to
not
supply
gonna go
you.
back and forth, but I will speak to any parent who wants to
I'll
talk
let you know.
about a concern about a child.
Absolutely.
And discuss that, so please reach out to me directly.
But we have it, as long as I'm letting you know.
That's fine.
And I also want to point out, like as I said in my comment, is we really don't want to talk about students or individual people, you know? And if there isn't a question, the superintendent is here.
This is a board member, Tom.
No, excuse me, I'm talking about the child that's involved, okay? So,
It's a board
Right
member
now-
directly with the student, had nothing to do with the superintendent, actually bypassed the
we're
superintendent.
not going back and forth, I'm just making a statement.
Okay.
That's why I invite you and the public, if they have questions, they can call the superintendent or their principal or their teacher. You know, it doesn't, it doesn't need to be waiting until a board meeting, especially when it involves children, because we would like to get all the facts and then make a decision.
And to Tom's point, if something's concerning about a child, don't wait for a board meeting, just call me directly, give me any information you have, and then I'll bring it to them.
Right, well, this has to go to the state. This is bypassed you, that's what I'm saying. That's where this is.
Okay, do you have any other speakers? Sure. Yes.
Very quickly,
No problem.
as much as I hear what you're saying, I am kind of tired of the whole let's not speak out in public, I get it with a child, you want to first bring it to you guys, but then it should be brought out into public, because this is the kind of stuff that's been swept under the table for way too long. So I can tell you that I work for a school, and my understanding is that the person that we're speaking about also works for a school. If I had crossed the line like that with a student, I would have not only been fired, my license would have been taken. So now we have somebody who's representing our children in our community, and we're continuing to let this go on for his own private endeavors. You guys need to take a look at this, although I think, again, I hear what you're saying about reporting something regarding a student ahead of time. I'm so glad it came out into the open, because this is what transparency is.
It's not about ahead of time, it's about at the time.
Correct,
And not
but
waiting.
this
I
is
don't
not a
know-
whole, then we
I-
don't bring it out into public because we want it to stay quiet.
She just
hush,
found
hush.
out.
No.
This is
no.
what we're saying.
This involves a student, and that's what I'm concerned
Correct,
about.
but we don't trust that if we bring it just to you, it's ever going to get out. So if we bring it to you, we can do that, and then we're still bringing it out so everybody hears it. But I would have my license taken from me and my job if I behaved that way.
Well, this is along the same subject. So basically, based on what I've just heard, I feel compelled as a taxpayer to make a comment. I know there's a code of ethics that all educators must follow. Administrators and teachers, as well as board members, are not permitted to use their position to pursue a student for their own personal gain. To do so is a clear violation of these ethics. This particular board member that is being referred to has done just that. His behavior, in my opinion, is unconscionable. He knows better. And if he doesn't, he should. So, from what has been stated, it seems there is evidence to this fact. As a retired educator myself, I must state that his behavior is completely inappropriate, bordering on predatory. As a former teacher,
Now, please stop.
yeah,
You're making accusations. It's fine.
this is my opinion. This is my opinion, and this is, and whoever else's opinion, that's up to them. But I have a right to speak. I am a taxpayer. My children went through the school. I have a right, myself. This particular board member is a former teacher, a current assistant principal, and a board member. And as such, should be aware of all of it. He has been entrusted with the care of the children in this district. He is supposed to protect them. His actions lead me to implore you to step down from your position as a board member immediately. If you are not willing to voluntarily vacate your seat, then I implore the board members to see to it that you are removed. Thank you.
This is Justin first.
This is a totally different topic. I'm here on behalf of Greater Islip Association. We're a nonprofit group that was established to stop the giant development that is proposed for Island Hills. I'm here tonight just to, we're gonna forward an email to the Sayville School Board. First of all, I appreciate what the Board of Ed does, volunteer your time. My dad was the president of Hop Hog School for almost 30 years, so thank you. I'm gonna just basically keep it quick. We're looking for a letter to be written to the town of Islip. We already had a letter written from Connecticut School Board. Where the property is gonna be built, it's zoned for around 85 single-family homes. They're looking to put in about 1,000 apartments. They keep changing the plans, but it's basically the same thing, just moving things around. So we're looking for some support, because we've been working on this for almost 6 years. We've hired engineers, traffic reports, we've done surveys. 97% of the people that we surveyed don't want anything to do with this. So I know this might not be a school board issue, but as a board member, you represent the community besides the school, because my dad was always involved in the community. So what I'm asking is, not officially, we're gonna send you an email, and I'm looking for support from the school board to make a statement, possibly write a letter on behalf of the school board opposing this massive development that they propose, which is gonna be a major burden on Sayville, more than Connecticut, because although it's their district, it's gonna affect our town. So that's really all I ask. I'm gonna leave a copy of a letter that we wrote to Connecticut School Board. We got their full support, and we will forward a specific letter to all the board members. I don't know if the superintendent would like to be included in that as well. And that's it. I'm just asking for your support in the town.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll just make a comment that when this came up the last time, the board did write a letter. It may not directly impact our, tax base, but it impacts the town, it impacts the local retail area, which of course then is our tax basis as well. So it does impact the schools. And if you send the information to the district clerk, we'll gladly review it.
Right. The reason that I'm asking for a second letter is because the first proposal was voted down unanimously. So now they're kind of just repainting things, but it's kind of the same thing.
Is there any concrete indication what their plan is? Because right now I've only heard
Technically, they don't have a proposal in writing, but they formed an advisory group that is paid members by the Reckler Association that are meeting. We have a meeting with them on November 9th. It seems like we're the last people they want to invite and ask for our opinion, the residents. But technically, no, but we already know about what their plans are.
Okay.
So yes, there is a proposal that will be submitted very soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Brian.
All right, stole my thunder. You're definitely an authority on the issue. I am not, but let me express my opinion on that. I have two things to talk about, and the first is the Reckler issue. Good evening, John Raymond, resident of Sayville. I'd like to address two issues tonight. First, I too urge the Board of Education to follow Connecticut's lead in last night's meeting and formally write a letter akin to what you laudably did in December of 2021 on the same topic, firmly opposing Reckler's zoning change request for the beautiful 110-acre parcel called Island Hills. The scale of development proposed would immeasurably degrade the quality of life here in Sayville and unacceptably strain the resources of first responders. And that's been documented. They were queried in the past and they've confirmed this. Traffic on Lakeland and particularly Railroad Avenues is already atrocious at times. My son, for example, bikes all over town at God knows all hours of the day and night, and he independently has volunteered to me the difficulty of crossing, particularly Railroad, by bike at all hours. So, bit of a danger. Can you imagine having to traffic if we have another 5,000 people? Okay, the second issue, and this is an issue, the issue came up of calling the super about things, which is very laudable, but I think things also need to be made public, and this is my public expression of another very important issue. I would bring to the board's attention the contentious events of September 21, 2023 at Rotary Park. This was billed in advance as a nonpartisan celebration of World Peace Day and was organized to a large degree by a sitting member, excuse me, of this board. I was there. In point of fact, an invited speaker named Bill McNulty of the North Country Peace Group, interesting term, delivered remarks that rapidly degenerated.
Can I interrupt you for a second? The board has stated clearly that we're not a part of any peace program.
Doesn't matter. I'm referring to a board member, an active board member who organized this event.
Okay, I thought you were referring to the whole board.
No, a contentious issue dividing the community.
We've stated clearly.
Oh, no, not the board. No, this is directed toward, to inform you and to inform the public about the behavior of a board member.
Okay.
But he wasn't there representing us, so I don't see.
Yeah,
He really doesn't have to
He was
be there.
an organizer of this event.
As an individual.
And this event, the speaker was invited, Bill McNulty was invited, and the remarks he delivered, let me finish my commentary. That rapidly degenerated into a frontal political attack on, dare I say, a majority of the community. He accused Republicans of colluding in insurrection and no, this is appropriate. This is a divisive issue by a sitting board member. I don't feel comfortable having that influence on my school. May I finish my remarks? To punish a leading presidential candidate. Some of us in attendance then spoke out in dismay at this presumed peaceful event. To varying degrees, we were set upon and threatened with violence by a thuggish clan of self-appointed Praetorian guards. I tell you this because the key organizer of this divisive debacle of a bait and switch is on this board. I, for one, am ill at ease knowing a man of such judgment and political bias holds sway over the formation of our children. Now, permit me to cite the 2018 New York State School Board Association Model Code of Ethics. In their official capacity, school board members should not engage in any, I'm under the 3 minutes, if I had not been interrupted, should not engage in any personal activity which represents a conflict of interest or an appearance of impropriety which would bring discredit upon the school district, its staff, and or its students. I would urge the board to deliberate upon the removal of the offending board trustee from his position at the earliest date. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we'll move on to our business. Okay, so we have the action 701 through, I'll do it through 1003.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. 10. Do I have a motion? Any discussion? Oh, sorry. I'll jump right in. Motion, second? Okay. Any discussion? It's because I want that discussion. Rhonda wants to say it's nice to change orders that are reduced.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, all those in favor? Against? Motion passes. Okay, then we have the policy review. So we're gonna table, yeah, it's, yeah, A2101. 3 people speaking at once. And John's on the one. Okay, so do I need a motion? I should table it.
We're referring to the policies, right?
I didn't motion.
Yeah, we motion to pull it out and table it, send it back to the policy. Okay? And then we're going to vote on policy 6710 and 5602. Can I have a motion? Second? All those in favor? Actually, this is just a review. It's a second we've done, so you
We don't get to wait.
do you want to discuss?
Well, I just think you should, you can hear me.
I can hear you. but-
I know. I mean, I think the first policy is pretty straightforward. It's acknowledging Rhonda and like.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. The second one, I just want to say that I am going to vote in favor of, and I can't believe it is already not part of our curriculum, and that is registering kids to vote, pre-register to vote before they turn 18. I can't believe we're not like already doing that, but I guess now the policy has to be followed. So I think that's a good thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's all good.
So I need a motion?
Motion.
Actually, no, we already did that.
We did.
Discussion. All those in favor? Against? John?
You're doing great, Tom. You're doing great.
Motion.
Making nervous.
Okay, so
Come up and help if you want.
we have upcoming dates. So we have the homecoming, which is maybe subjected to a rain delay. And then we have November 2nd, we have the Board of Education workshop at 7:30. On November 7th, we have the superintendent's conference day, schools and clubs for students. And on November 16th, we have the Board of Education meeting at 7:30. Can't believe we're talking about November.
I just want to comment on the homecoming. It's looking like the rain is going to be all day and pretty wet. So the worst thing in the world for those floats is to be wet because they're made of like tissue paper. So we've come up with a plan to extend the pep rally by 20 minutes, and the kids are going to make floats that fit in the gym. They're going to do their same routines and activities just in the gym on Friday. It's not what we want, it's not what we planned, but if we try to do it on Saturday, it's going to be a disaster. So that's the plan for the floats and the homecoming, kind of a mini parade in the school during the pep rally.
Rather just not that.
No, then you're very.
It's unbelievable. Every week makes a problem.
Okay, we're going to need a motion to go into executive session to discuss particular personnel. And before that, we'll take a 5-minute break. Motion? Second. Second. All those in favor?